Hello everybody, I'm Katerin, and I would like to begin with saying thank you to the New World Summit for this beautiful initiative of bringing us together. And I would also want to thank you, the people of Rojava, for receiving us so well. In this past few days, I have cried tears of joy and hope, but also tears of despair. Your courage, your determination, and your open hearts have touched me deeply. And I do believe that what you're building up right here is the future for all of us. I am excited to be participating with you on this day. For me, it is a statement of that we truly are living in an important time in history. Worldwide, feminists are mobilizing and exercising power, as is the case for both West Kurdistan and for Sweden, where feminists are representing in the parliaments. Feminist Initiative was founded in 2005, and the question that arises is, if Sweden already is working for gender equality, then what is the need for a party as Feminist Initiative? As a matter of fact, the Swedish government in 2006 announced gender equality is an explicit goal in Sweden. Women and men shall have the same power to shape society and their own lives by equal representation in private, public and civil sector, economic equality throughout the life course, equal distribution of unpaid domestic and care work, and the ending of men's violence against women. Just the other day, a national evaluation of these goals were presented to the government of Sweden. The conclusions were that the progression towards gender equality is far too slow, that men still dominate the most important posts in society, that immigrant women stand far from the labor market, and that young women's mental health illness is increasing. The report also states that previous efforts show that individuals and groups have been given tools to increase equality and knowledge about this, but no structural change towards gender equality can be seen. Therefore, when Feminist Initiative started, our main focus was adult education. We saw the need of educating the people on gender equality. In Sweden, we deal with gender equality as an opinion, but it is a question of knowledge. Still, people often says, I think that Sweden is equal. Feminist Initiative says, there are statistics that show how it actually looks. Last year was the 30th anniversary of the booklet Women and Men in Sweden, Facts and Figures. It shows that after 40 years of parental insurance, a social benefit that enables parents to stay at home with their children for a year with salary, only 25% of the fathers used it in 2012. We can do a comparison with 1985, where only 6% of the fathers used it. This shows that we don't have equal share of unpaid work at home, nursing, taking care of the family, cleaning, tasks traditionally assigned to women. Women earn 86% of what men earn. The main explanation is that women and men have different occupations. The main explanation is that women and men have different occupations, but also that women-dominated fields are valued lower. Low wages and part-time employment equals low pensions. Women have only 66% of the amount men have. I often refer to the year 2138. The year 2138 is the year when equal pay will become reality in Sweden. This means that children born today will grow, get an education, work, retire, and get buried without seeing the day when men and women have equal pay. But our party isn't only about gender equality. We are intersectional feminists. In recent years, our movement broadened and found new voices outside the white academic middle class. Feminist Initiative gained new perspective on how power is exercised and how this affects others whose power and scope of action is limited. The intersectional perspective was coined in the 80s by the American Kimberly Crenshaw, active in Black feminist movement. She felt that it was necessary to provide a more nuanced approach to the group women, rather than labeling us as one even group. The experience of being a woman of color is different from being a white woman. We have different status, different opportunities, and are deprived from certain privileges which white women have in Western society. As in Rojava, I also see that women we have many different cultures also here, so this is why we need to see how we can incorporate this. As an intersectional analysis enables us to see how rights, opportunities, and ability to influence society actually look different for different groups. I'm sorry. Intersectionality is the broadening of feminist struggle into that of other oppressed classes and people. Furthermore, it pinpoints that other factors also come into play in discrimination, such as age, class, ethnicity, functionality, and sexuality. So in 2009, we added the intersectional perspective in our political platform. We are certain that representation is the key when creating an equal society. It is important to stress that the main focus is to let the conceived problem to be formulated by the affected group, which also owns the solution. This means that Feminist Initiative fights all ideas that stands in the way of equality, not only gender inequality. Feminist Initiative is pushing for policies based on an intersectional feminist analysis. Feminism, anti-racism, and human rights must be imbued in every political decision in all areas of society. Structural racism and discrimination in Sweden is also a question of knowledge. Sweden has a long history of institutionalized racism. I would like to address Sweden's participation in the transatlantic slave trade. We have had slave colonies in Ghana, and it was Swedish iron that fettered the slaves in the slave ships and in the slave markets. We are also one of the last countries to abolish slavery. Still, this fact remains almost unknown in Sweden. We were the first nation with an academic institute for racial biology. As a matter of fact, we came up with the science of comparing different races, putting the white race above all other people. People were measured and defined by this science. This science led to the forced sterilization on the Roma, amongst others, because they were threatening to contaminate the white race. For those of you who don't know the Roma people, they are traveling people, and today they are an ethnic minority that has lived in Sweden for 500 years. They have been denied equal rights in Sweden and are still heavily discriminated in Sweden and in Europe. They were prohibited to stay for more than 3 days in one place until 1969. They weren't allowed to have a steady home, which led to no address. And no address, well, meant that their children had no right to go to school, for example. Today, social and economic inequality is increasing in Sweden, accompanied by the rise of nationalism. We see xenophobic and race-motivated hate crime are increasing in Sweden. There is a sharp ethnic and socioeconomic division in metropolitan areas, particularly affecting Afro-Swedes and Muslims. Roma national minority do not have full access to education, housing, and the labor market. Because of this, in January of 2015, this year, the UN Committee Against Racial Discrimination summoned the Swedish government for an interrogation in Geneva. It was the third time that the committee severely criticized Sweden in the report. Continuing problems with structural racism and discrimination sums up the UN report. So to fight racism, gender inequality, and capitalism, Feminist Initiative's political platform stands on three legs: social sustainability, ecological sustainability, and economical sustainability, because they are interlaced, and this is why you can't have one without the other. Social sustainability for us is putting human rights first and subordinating economic interests. We push for an independent institute for human rights, promoting, protecting, and monitoring progress on human rights in Sweden, with focus on anti-discrimination and representation. In Sweden, we're regulating inflation with balanced unemployment, which has had great consequences on the public health, education, and even expected lifespan. Therefore, we work towards a generalized reduction of working hours from 8 to 6-hour workday. We believe that this is beneficial for public health, gender equality, as well as the climate, since it would stretch new definitions on living well and well-being. Freedom from violence is a part of our vision, and we work to achieve it nationally and internationally. Domestic violence is an issue in Sweden as well. Sweden has not been in war for over 200 years. Still 17 women are killed every year. Here, the feminist movements in Sweden and West Kurdistan converge. We are educating men, strengthening women, and their role in society and in relation to the family. Therefore, we see the need of cutting military spending and redirecting substantial resources to violence preventing work. Our view on security corresponds with the United Nations Security Council's call for disarmament and focus on personal security. Globally, we're pushing for a security policy based primarily on conflict prevention, which promotes stability and well-functioning institutions instead of creating peace throughout military means. We are advocating increased resources on conflict prevention and to strengthen the ability of women to participate in peace process in accordance with the UN Resolution 1325. The resolution endorses the important role of women in the prevention and resolution of conflicts, peace negotiations, peace building, peacekeeping, humanitarian response, and in post-conflict reconstruction. Ecological sustainability and gender. We advocate a gender-based analysis on climate change. Climate change has a gender. Men's consumption habits leave bigger carbon footprints, they fly more often than women, use less collective transportation, and male norms such as motorsports and eating meat like a man makes men affect the environment far more than women. Since the difference in patterns between men and women are so great, we need to look into ways of educating and assisting men in changing their behaviors towards sustainable ones. Feminist Initiatives also takes into account colonialism and racism when we look at climate change and the development countries' role. There's a logic that prevails as a residue from European colonialism that makes the need and rights of the others different from the white Western civilization's needs and rights. Sweden removes wastes from our backyards, dumping it in development countries. This is also expressed when Sweden cuts national pollution by moving production to development countries, or when we use nuclear energy under the excuse that it's clean energy, leaving out the toxic waste we leave behind in countries where we dig for uranium, like Namibia, for example. Human rights ecological and social sustainability must be superior economic interests. Economy is a vehicle, not a goal. We see economy as the means to create an equal society free from violence and discrimination. We wish to redirect spending. For example, instead of investing in the weapon industry, invest in the social sector. Instead of using joint resources to control borders, open the borders and use the money to strengthen people's opportunity. It's about taking political responsibility with regards to the role that Sweden plays in a global order characterized by the rich countries profiting on poor ones and where there is exploitation of natural resources. How do we justify exploitation of people, nature, and non-human beings in the name of constant economic growth instead of focusing on sustained growth? It's possible that Sweden excuses their role as the third greatest weapon exporting country in the world with the mantra, it creates jobs. Therefore, we see the need of replacing Swedish weapon industry to civil production. Right now, we're doing businesses with Israel and Saudi Arabia. There are Swedish weapons in Afghanistan and in Yemen. It's unsustainable and inexcusable. Sweden has not known war for more than 200 years. Still, every 4 Swedish women have suffered from male violence and 17 women are killed every year. In a reality where the World Health Organization shows that global war against women claimed more lives than all wars together during the 20th century, Feminist Initiative is pushing for Sweden to take the lead in active military disarmament and to work towards social investments in Sweden as well as internationally. We are certain that cutting military spending, disinvestments in unsustainable industries, and taking the lead in social and sustainable investments make life better for all women, despite where in the world we might live. If the goal is freedom from violence and discrimination, we need to see that discrimination, sexism, and racism are not only derived by class oppression and capitalism. Economic equality would not eliminate discrimination nor violence. Therefore, a feminist politics based on non-discrimination, human rights, and sustainability is the best alternative for those of us who want to consign militarism, nationalism, discrimination, gender violence, and other results of patriarchy to history once and for all. Although our struggles against patriarchy and inequality at first glance seem to differ, a closer look reveals where we converge. In West Kurdistan, as well as in Sweden, feminists are changing the way we approach power and organize society for a dignified life and the participation of all. Spas.